This morning, sirens rang out in Tel Aviv, and as Israel's military says Iran launched another round of missiles toward the city. And the United Arab Emirates said it intercepted incoming missile and drone attacks from Iran this morning, according to a post on X by the Defense Ministry. Earlier attacks were also reported against Bahrain and Saudi Arabia after the U.S. intensified airstrikes on Karg Island, which serves as Iran's most important oil export terminal. U.S. Central Command says more than 90 Iranian military targets were hit, while deliberately leaving the oil facilities intact. Trump indicated that there might be more strikes on Karg Island to come, saying he may hit it a few more times just for fun. Yes, that's a real quote. Iran has already launched reciprocal strikes in Dubai. Investors are warning that additional strikes could plunge global oil markets into further chaos, as the island ships out roughly 90% of Iran's crude oil exports. Oil prices have already hit a 4-year high, more than $103 per barrel. That's an increase of over 40% since the start of the war. The Wall Street Journal reports that Trump himself was warned that Iran might try to blockade the Strait of Hormuz, but proceeded with the war anyways, assuming that Iranian leaders would capitulate before doing so. All of this comes after days of saying that the Strait of Hormuz was under control.
The straits are in great shape. We've knocked out all of their boats. They have some missiles, but not very many. I think we're in very good shape.
They are exercising sheer desperation in the Straits of Hormuz. Something we're dealing with. We have been dealing with it, and don't need to worry about it.
Don't need to worry about it. Joining us now is White House correspondent for Notice, Jasmine Wright, and senior economics reporter for Axios, Courtney Brown. Thank you both for joining us first thing on Sunday morning. We appreciate it. Courtney, I want to get to this talking point that Trump keeps saying to gloss over everything that we just read through, which is that some short-term pain is long-term gain. But according to all of the economists that I've been reading in the past few weeks, that's really not how this works, that short-term pain does not mean that there's just a temporary blip in some of these economic indicators that we're seeing already spike. Can you walk us through some of that and provide a fact check?
Right. The world's energy supply is not like an on and off switch. You can't just turn it on when you're ready to, reduce tensions in the Middle East. There are bottlenecks that will linger on even if the conflict were to end tomorrow. And gasoline prices is what we talk about because it's the most salient price across the economy. But fertilizer, diesel, all the things that go into our food that, help comprise airfare prices. Like, we're talking about an economic-wide shock. At some of the worst times. We got a bunch of economic data on Friday.
And that was economic data that measured everything prior to the start of the war. Is that right?
Pre-war baseline. GDP was revised down, and I know there was the government shutdown, but when you look at like the inner guts of the economy, which is consumer spending and investment, even that was revised down. So growth, very tepid, inflation higher. It's a stagflation scenario even before we talk about the shock to the energy supply.
One of the things that has been confusing for me, Jasmine, is whether or not the president knew the possibility of the Strait of Hormuz causing issues for oil. So one, let's take a look at, all the times in which Iran struck ships in the Strait of Hormuz or threatened to close. So this is in 1980, the Iran-Iraq oil tanker wars, 2008, Iran-U.S. naval dispute, 2011 to 2012, Strait of Hormuz dispute, 2018, after Trump left Iran nuclear deal, 2019, attacks on oil tankers, 2025, post-Operation Midnight Hammer. The president, if he didn't know the risk, he should have known the risk. We can all look at this and say, oh, that would be bad. So is there anyone in the White House that raised their hand other than General Kane and said this could be bad for the economy and so then bad for you politically?
I mean, let's be clear. The Pentagon has a plan for every situation known to man. They have multiple plans, but it is the commander-in-chief. It is the Pentagon chief. It is folks like that are appointed that actually decide which plan to put in place and then move forward with that. And so, of course, the president was briefed on the fact that this could happen, that this could be something. The Washington Journal reported that he was briefed and decided that it wouldn't be that big of a deal, that he didn't think that Iran would go through with actually closing the strait. Obviously, we know that has not come to fruition because they have all but closed the strait. Specifically, they say U.S. and Israel tankers can't get through. You have to pay with Chinese yen now. I mean, they're putting a lot of conditions. We may strike if you don't get approval. And so, I think that the White House has made their calculus. And so now they're basically trying to deal with it. But it is I think this is another situation in which they're asking us to believe something that Americans are seeing with their own eyes, which is that obviously if there was a lot of planning for it, the planning in place isn't actually effectuating the change that they want, because people are seeing their gas prices go up. And they're also seeing now the president say our allies should get involved in the fight and help us keep the strait open.
Well, Courtney, speaking of asking us to believe something and also getting our allies involved, the president said recently that in terms of, we're going to escort ships. The U.S. Navy is going to escort ships through the Strait of Hormuz, and we've got all these allies who are going to help us with that. I have yet to hear any ally say that they're going to do any such thing. Have you heard anything from Japan, France, the UK, maybe even China saying, we're going to escort ships?
The opposite. I think they're kind of like in emergency mode. We saw the EU meet this week, I believe, and say, OK, our energy supply is going to be impacted by this conflict. And so we need to get together and figure out a plan to release more oil into the market. We need to do something about this. It's less about how do we help and more about how are we going to offset the impact to our own economy from this war.
I want to follow up real quickly, because our friend and colleague Ayman Mohyeldin had an interview with the Iranian foreign minister. And here's what he had to say when was asked about the closing of the Strait of Hormuz. Watch this.
Will the Straits of Hormuz remain closed so long as this war continues?
Well, as a matter of fact, the Strait of Hormuz is open. It is only closed to the tankers and ships belong to our enemies, to those who are attacking us and their allies. Others are free to pass. Of course, many of them prefer not, because of their, security concerns. This has nothing to do with us.
So I wanted to play that because it's like, strait's open. Unless you're right, try it. You're the United States or affiliated with the United States. How do you think this comment from the foreign minister will impact the oil market when they open later today, Eastern time?
I do not feel, I really do feel for, rather, energy traders, because they were really put through it this week. When I think about the Energy Secretary Chris Wright's post on social media that sent energy markets, swinging wildly because he had mistakenly said that, things were getting escorted through the strait. I think it's going to be a wild ride. Energy markets are supposed to be boring, by the way. Yeah. The fact that we're sitting here on a Sunday morning talking about energy markets, energy futures, something is wrong, right? It's not supposed to have these big, ginormous swings. It's a volatile backdrop that the economy just really doesn't need right now.
So, Jasmine, do you know how close the White House is to actually being able to accomplish what Chris Wright mistakenly said that they're going to do, which is accompany ships along the Strait of Hormuz? I mean, are there any conversations happening that indicate that this is something that the U.S. military in this moment actually has the capability of being able to execute? Well,
the conversations are ongoing. I know the military said that they probably wouldn't be able to actually do it until later on this week. The president said last night in that interview with Kristen Welker that he didn't believe it was necessary as of yet. And so I think that that's still a question mark. Fundamentally, though, the White House believes that the president will make the decision to stop this war when he feels it. And that
in his bones.
In his bones. But that that is also going to be in addition to what the military says. If the military says that they have achieved all those objectives that they have now refined after a week, including taking away their missile capabilities and the like, then the president will make that decision. But they don't see that happening in the next week or 2 weeks. I mean, they're not putting a timeline on it, but they're basically saying that even though outside allies of the president are telling him to pull this back, that it's becoming a political issue for you, that the president is steadfast in wanting to make sure that this ends in a victory the way that he deems it so. And that could mean that this goes on for a couple more weeks.
I think that's really important. And folks have said on this show and others around the network, when you are in war, everybody gets a vote on how it ends and what the actual impacts are. So Iran will get a vote in that. Russia, who is assisting, according to reports, Iran in certain ways. Before we go to the break, guys, I want to read the 6 airmen who were killed in the Iraq refueling plane crash. These names were released from the Pentagon just last night. If we can throw that up there. We have Major John A. Klinner, 33 years old, Captain Ariana G. Savino, 31, Technical Sergeant Ashley B. Pruitt, 34, Captain Seth R. Koval, 38, Captain Curtis J. Angst, 30, Technical Sergeant Tyler H. Simmons, 28. So far, at least 13 Americans that we know of have died due to the war with Iran. And it is really important for us to remember this because the president of the United States has still not given a lot of explanation about why we're doing this, how we're doing this. There's a lot of confusion. And as a military brat myself, I understand the people that go and fight in these wars, they do so willingly, but they also deserve an answer. And most importantly, especially their families left behind deserve an answer of why they lost their lives.